Why isn't the delete button working? What's going on here? Wow, this is cool. This is
supposed
something
to work
completely
this way.
Wow, this is crazy.
Oh,
Nice.
Who
This is something
gives a
for
shit?
for sure. This is unbelievable.
Oh, I see.
You know what? Buck FIM.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Buck FIM, the AEC channel that talks about everything architecture, engineering, construction. Well, today we have another great guest on the line. We have Juste Fanou coming in from Bibliotech Inc., and we are going to be chatting about everything related to specifications today, which is a topic that needs to be covered quite more frequently. Thank you very much, Juste, for joining on the line.
Hi, Dennis. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No, anytime. This is a long time coming. And I am loving the avatar that you have going on the screen here. Where did you get this? How did this come to be?
Thank you very much. Well, I figured that, it's kind of like as you mentioned, an avatar or an alter ego. And I find that sometimes people listen to me more or listen to what I have to say when it's not me talking. So hopefully I can share some things here that would be taken better than like if people were seeing my face. But this looks better than I do, so.
Debatable. It looks great. I'm happy to see it. And so just tell me about yourself. How did you get into the specifications world, and how did you get up to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. I can give you the long version or the short version. But basically, my background is architecture and engineering. I went to Sheridan College studying architectural technology, actually. And it was after Sheridan, during my co-op, I got an offer, I guess, to go work at in the specifications department at Adams and Associates. It was interesting. It's an interesting story because, being like a young student and, foolish and just trying to get like just any job, I just kind of like applied to any job that came my way.
Yeah.
And at the interview, I actually had forgotten what I had applied for. So they told me like, hey, why do you want to be in specs? And I was like, that's what I applied for? Sure, I love specs. But it was a match made in heaven because, they like me and I like them. And I owe a lot to that firm and to my mentors over there. Shout out to Matt Roberts and Theresa Barrett if they're listening. And after that, I just started basically writing specifications full time, working with Parkin Architects. And I decided to further my education. Went and got a degree at McMaster in engineering because I just wanted to know more about specifications. And the rest is history.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's definitely a different world. It's gotten to this conversation a while back about specifications and how, specifications is a big ticket item, but it's very lightly touched on in secondary education. And what I mean by that is like, I know, and that's a very unfortunate thing. Like I remember when I was in school, it was in our third year when all of our major projects were coming out, they just slipped in a specifications class in there, which was, 15 to 30 hours of work. But when I look back on this, what are your thoughts on this? How should we be incorporating specifications into a schooling system?
Yeah, and it's actually, it's funny that you mentioned this because I fate will have it that I actually teach the specifications course now at Sheridan College. And what I find is that it's attitudes about specifications have to change. And I think that a lot of times people are afraid of specifications, and that includes instructors, right? So you have a lot of instructors who are not themselves specifications writers, who have only touched on specifications like very lightly, or maybe they're teaching you about specifications and the last time they heard about specs was when they were in school themselves, right? So I think that like the first step goes into like getting experienced people or people that work with specifications to teach the courses. CSC, Construction Specifications Canada, like has great courses that you can take if you want to pursue that career. The only issue is that you have to find you have to get students to be interested, and that's
That's
not
true.
easy. And sometimes, there is a disservice that even comes from like your teachers. It's like, okay, take this course here, and you probably never touch specifications again, but like, it's kind of like a necessary evil.
Yeah.
um and I think that, yeah, those attitudes really have to change. I mean, I try my best to make the course interesting for the students, but with education and everything being so administrative, like it's hard to really make um too much like drastic change, because they're like, oh well, this is the syllabus, and like we can't really change this, or we can't really change that, this is what the ministry approved and what have you. I'm like, what the ministry approved is bad, like let's start over, right? But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's not easy. Like, I mean, I have ideas about like what the ideal specifications course would be, but obviously, like, you also need time to implement your ideas.
For
But yeah, no,
sure.
I think that, yeah, no, teaching more and letting people know more about specifications is crucial.
Definitely. I mean, like even taking an entry level spec binder into a class, like if you're doing a high rise building, let's say, and as a final project for your school,
Right.
and taking what you learn from specs to have to generate at least some of the content for that final project to see how it applies in the real world and
Right.
something like that. But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, I mean, specs have historically and, even to this day been a fairly manual process for a lot of firms. I mean,
Right.
it's pretty heavy, I can imagine. What does that manual process look like currently? And do you think it adapts well to change or?
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I hate the manual process,
Oh yeah.
and I try as much as possible to leverage technology to get out of the manual process, right? Because when I started, like, working with specs, it was like, okay, this is a great career, but I don't want to be changing like headers and footers on 500 files. Like that's not what I want to do, right? Like I want to know more about materials. I want to know more about these things. But I just don't want to be doing this. This is too boring. Like I'm going to shoot myself.
Yeah.
And there is a perception out there that all specifications writers do is just formatting documents and all that kind of stuff. But I think that if you're smart about it, and you work smart and not hard, like computers have gotten really great and really powerful at doing repetitive tasks. So one of the first things that I did in my career was like learn Microsoft scripting language, Visual
Yeah.
Basic for applications, and I started writing macros, right? So I was like, okay, I need a macro that will change headers on 100 files, because that always comes at the last minute, and then they're like, oh, we're not issuing for tender, we're issuing for bid or something.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and change all those headers. I'm like, okay, no problem. I will tell you, I will need like so many hours to do it, but I'm gonna do it in 5 minutes.
Yep.
So, but in any case, at the end of the day, I think that they're like specifications are going to move from just kind of like these repeated manual processes to more more knowledge based and more data driven
Yep.
at the end of the day, and that's what I'm trying to explore too with Bibliotech.
Yeah, I saw you on LinkedIn the other day doing some homework on machine learning there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's some pretty heavy detail work. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, I try. And I think that, I think that computers are our friends. And I think that, you would know this more than anybody, like as a BIM professional. I think that like there's a lot that computers can do for us. But many people are afraid that like, technology is going to replace them or replace their jobs, or
Yeah.
they'll not be ready. And it's not like when we invented the bicycle we stopped walking, right? Or when we invented the car, like bikes went away. But I think that we should really like be smart about how we implement technology in our work, And whether we like it or not, like, it's like, the train is moving. We just have to catch up.
It's true. It's true. I mean, so the biggest thing is like standardization. Right now, we're in this weird transitionary stage where a lot of the data management and information management that's coming through is struggling a bit with a consolidation of standards. So I mean, with that being said, specifications they have their own globalized standards that appear in data management. Are you seeing it starting to have a more unified approach as years go by?
I mean, like, I haven't been as involved with, with the bridge between specifications and, like, their, I guess, their insertion into building information modeling. And I want to be, because I find that, like, really, like, specifications ultimately will become the information in building information modeling, right? Because, if you want to extract good value from your model, or you're going to use it for I don't know, energy analysis and all that kind of stuff, like, you have to specify all those materials, or else the results are going to be garbage.
Yeah.
So I think that like, there are standards out there. Like, I haven't researched them as much as I need to, but the problem that I find is that, really, in construction, what happens is that we create a lot of data waste. When I write, and especially with specifications, when I write a binder or project manual full of specs for one project, that data is static, right? Like, I send it to the printers print me 4 volumes. I have like 4 volumes sitting on my computer. But
Yep.
anybody that wants to query that information, like, the best thing they have is Control F, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's very static data, and it's very unfortunate, right? So, I mean, like, a task that I've been doing over the last couple of years, and, like, that started way back when I was working with WZMH, actually,
Yep.
was basically create a structure for that data. And it's I mean, it's a crazy task, because I'm basically extracting all that static data from these documents, like product names, product numbers, manufacturer numbers, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what that creates is that, if you put it in a database, and then you can and you structure that database properly, then you can reuse that data quite efficiently,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So, like, once you create a project manual, like, you don't have to throw it away. Like, you can actually say, because how many times do we say, hey, what did we use on that project? Nobody knows. Oh, the shop drawings are filed in this folder. The approval is filed in this folder. The change order is filed in that folder. And there is no real continuation of, from specification to delivery to the client, what happened to that material. So that's where I'm trying to get my specifications to be. And, those are the thoughts that I have, and, where I ultimately want to take Bibliotech. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Have
No.
big dreams, I guess.
No, those are accurate dreams. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that happening right now. Like, even if you look online with Google and their autofill, like,
Right.
it's using historical data to program predictable responses. So you can be able to do that for specifications. That's a win.
Right.
I mean, technology is obviously advancing pretty quickly. You touched on it briefly, but has it really affected your workflow in such a big way? I mean, how has that role played out for you?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, like, I've always been like a huge embracer of technology, and maybe it's because I'm lazy, I don't know. But, like, it's just that whenever I have a task, I always think to myself, well, could a computer do it better? Or could a computer do it faster?
Yep.
Because that's the only way that you can actually scale. And when you also think about the amount of work that we're expected to do in an 8 hour, or these days is more like 10 hours, because you never really stop working. You
Yeah.
wake up, you check your phone, and then you go to bed, you check your phone, and half the time you're answering work emails. So, it's, that amount of work is not going to stop. And, when you're a consultant like me, or, you have your own practice, it's usually a good thing. But if you can't meet your client's demands, they're just going to go somewhere else.
It's
So
true.
so technology has always been like a big thing for me, and I've always made technology like one of the core things of my practice. So there are like really cool specification writing tools, or I guess specification writing helps out
Mm-hmm.
there, if you will. So I've kind of like researched a couple. There's VisiSpecs, there's
Yeah,
eSpecs. There are a bunch of them out there. But I think that one thing that they're all missing is kind of like getting that data into the spec. So
it's true.
at most, they become like, glorified word processors, right? So they are just, hey, we have this really cool tool where, you don't have to like do your headers and your footers, right? So like that's, I mean, like that's really a macro, right? Like, oh, we have
Yeah,
this really cool tool that will help you do a table contents. But like, I haven't really seen them push it to, hey, on this project, here is your curtain wall, and we're gonna tie that right back to the manufacturer shop drawings, and that can be integrated into the BIM model. Like that's really where specification should be going, and
for
it's kind
sure.
of sad that they're not there yet. And I kind of like partly blame Autodesk, but that's a different conversation.
We love pointing the finger at the big A. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure they'll get there eventually. They got some patchwork to do on their current products at the moment, but we'll see. But yeah, I would say you know companies are really still doing a lot of manual work. What can a company do to make themselves more flexible with specs? I mean, it seems products are almost changing too rapidly to be having to alter full binder changes. I mean, we looked at VisiSpecs at WZMH here. We've done few test runs. Yeah, it helps
Right.
in small areas, but like, should we be hiring a programmer for things like this?
Well,
Or
you can hire me.
yeah, there we go. So exactly, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that you have to decide what you want out of specifications, because they're
Mm-hmm.
very important documents, right? So they are, I mean, they're the written, almost a written companion to the drawings.
Yep.
And ultimately, if there's a dispute, we're gonna go back to the specs, and then we're gonna say, okay, well, what do the specs say? And in most contracts, most construction contracts, there is an order of hierarchy where the specs kind of like trump the drawings, if you will.
Yep.
So that makes them very, very important. So
Oh
like, they
yeah.
shouldn't be taken lightly. So I think that, like, yeah, first of all, is like, getting somebody that knows what they're doing. And I think that there has to be almost like a decoupling that happens
Yep.
between the person that has the knowledge of the products, and usually that's, most of the time, like an older, less technologically savvy person
Mm-hmm.
who's done this stuff for years, who knows all the sealants, who knows all the curtain wall. They've had enough building failures to know what materials to use and what materials not to use. And then, bring in like a more, like a younger, more maybe programming oriented person to be able to leverage that knowledge and create tools to make the process faster.
Oh, for sure.
Now, as I've said, like, there are some tools out there, like, if you're a company right now, and, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about here is theoretical, and, maybe we're like, 5-10 years away from, that being a reality. And I'm, trying things myself. But, what you could do practically here, I mean, start investigating spec writing software, right? Like Microsoft
Yep.
Word will only get you so far.
So true.
So, like one software that I swear by, I've tried it, and this is not a plug or anything like that. They're not paying me to say this, but they have good quality. It's VisiSpecs,
Yep.
and I've used VisiSpecs, and I continue to use it. Like it's amazing. Like it's really helped me out,
Mm-hmm.
because they have like keynoting tools, and then they have integration with Revit. So they really know, like, I think that they've really studied the spec writer's workflow and tried to develop a software around that.
Yeah, it
Um,
has been great. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and there's another one called the NBS, which you can also check out. So
Yeah.
those are my suggestions.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you had mentioned you're playing around with a few things on your own. What do you got going on over there at Bibliotech?
Yeah, I mean, like we have a few things going on. I mean, like there's Bibliotech, which is kind of like really, I mean, like it started off as as a library that I had for myself, and it was basically my go-to source for, hey, I have a problem with this product, or with this, I have a question about a certain product. Like I just kind of like, I just call the rep or call the manufacturer. And a lot of times knowing the right person to call for something is can be hard, because you're kind of like calling like a bunch of different 1-800 numbers, and they're not always responsive. So I needed my own library. So that's why I created Bibliotech. So since then, like COVID hit, and then I was like, hey, listen, a lot of people must be in the same situation. At least, like the spec writers, and, potentially like, some of the smaller architects. So I said, hey, you know what? Like as my own way of like helping with the pandemic, why don't I just release this? So yeah,
Why
so I
not?
had to like find a way to like secure the data, put it on like an easy to use platform, and all that kind of stuff. So that was what Bibliotech was about. But since then, we've taken the same model and we've created Bibliotech Academy,
That's
which
cool.
is essentially like hey, the pandemic happened, all the learning went online, right? So you don't have live events anymore, but there's like a million webinars happening, and it's almost like a flood, and you get them in your email, you get them through this newsletter, you get them on LinkedIn. So I was like,
Hmm.
hey, can I put that all in one location, and have people access it, and then just kind of like browse through, like using the master format divisions,
Yeah,
and learn more about what they actually want to learn about. So yeah, so that's Bibliotech Academy. And we're also kind of like working with, like, I mean, you've mentioned the machine learning tool, so I'm
yep.
kind of like training a model right now where it can help me classify the topics for the presentation. So that's going to take some of the manual labor out of it. So as I've said, like I always try to leverage technology and see how I can use it. And yeah, so we're also thinking of like doing kind of like a bibliotech for uh like for firms. So like if WZMH wanted its own bibliotech like specific to WZMH, we
Yeah,
could kind of like have create a custom solution. So yeah,
yeah.
so we're busy.
Yeah, I mean, you're a lot like me. I like to call it efficiently lazy because I like to be to plan out my laziness very well, and
Yeah.
that involves a lot of programming. That's why I got into it to begin with, to reduce all the mundane tasks that I dislike, and it helps out so much, so much. It's great to see it happening in the specs world. It's especially something that should be brought out more into the limelight. I can't count the number of times that I have seen a company go and spray a fireproofing spray onto the underside of a ceiling, only for an inspector to come through and say doesn't
Yeah.
quite meet the smoke requirements.
Right.
And yeah, so like things like that. And we need to be more smart about it to give us more time to review versus more all the time we spend creating. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, awesome. Well, just thank you very much for joining on the line. I'm sure we're going to have some more great conversations about this stuff in the future. Is there anything else you wanted to bring to our BuckFilm listeners, and something that you're working on, the future of Bibliotech?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you don't have a Bibliotech account, go sign up. It's www.bibliotech.ca. And if you are looking for great, continuing education presentations, you can go to academy.bibliotech.ca. And yeah, so, we're growing our user base, and we're growing our mailing list. So one thing that we do is that if you sign up for the newsletter, we email you once a month like a curated list of events happening in the industry. So we have like a well-rounded list so that you can have things that you cater to, or that cater to you, if you will. So yeah, I would just say, yeah, just go sign up for Bibliotech, and you won't regret it.
Oh man, I'm definitely signing up. I love academies. Well, thank you very much for joining on, Juice. This has been fantastic, and thank you to all the Buck Fam listeners that are on board that have been watching today. Well, that's it for us, but thanks again. Make sure to tune in next week as we get some more crazy guests on the line. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we go, and you'll find that this channel's going to explode. I mean, we'll see. But anyway.
Thank you very much for having me, Dennis.
Hey, anytime. You know what? Thank you, fans. Keep on bimming. Take care, everyone.